It's been a busy third day in Washington for Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Tomorrow, our time, he'll attend a state dinner at the White House hosted by the US President Joe Biden. Before that, though, there has been a continued focus on the rise of China as well as the importance of the US-Australia alliance. Political editor Andrew Clennell is travelling with the Prime Minister. I spoke to him a short time ago from outside the Capitol building. Andrew, one of the backdrops of this visit, of course, is the ongoing war in the Middle East, but still very much the context of the visit is the uncertainty and the power, the rising power of China in our region.
There's no doubt about that, Kieran. I mean, the Prime Minister didn't want to talk about that yesterday before his visit to President Xi in a week and a half, but that's absolutely going to be one of the topics that Joe Biden and other officials talked to Anthony Albanese about. So it was an obvious question for me today when the Australian travelling media had the benefit of an open briefing, an on-the-record briefing from John Kirby, who's the head of communications for national security out of the White House, in terms of what approach he wanted Anthony Albanese to take in China. He gave an answer on that which isn't dissimilar to the PM's public language about China. He also spoke about Australia being a pillar of free passage through the South China Sea and about the AUKUS nuclear submarine agreement. Some confidence that's going to go ahead, but he really stressed Australia's geopolitical and strategic importance. Here's what he had to say about the approach Anthony Albanese should take on his upcoming China visit.
What's the President's view of Anthony Albanese's upcoming visit to China and anything that he should be saying there to President Xi or the view on that?
I would tell you, President Biden believes it's important that we keep lines of communication open with China. Now, I can't speak for Australia, would never do that, but in the United States, we view China as a strategic competitor. It's a competition that we mean to succeed in. And obviously, as appropriate, work to counter some of the PRC's intimidation, coercion, excessive maritime claims. I mean, so more open lines of communication with China is a good thing. As a matter of fact, later this week, Wang Yi's coming, and he'll meet with the Secretary of State and with Jake Sullivan. Again, we think lines of communication are appropriate and certainly would welcome the Prime Minister's visit and the sense that he comes away from with that in terms of Australia's communication with the PRC. Australia is a real pillar for pursuing what we call the free and open Indo-Pacific and stability and prosperity there. Given the size and of the country, that it is such a vibrant democracy, given its military capabilities, given its geographic position and where it is, it's vital to us.
Obviously, John Kirby, in his position in the White House, was always going to get questions about the Israel conflict, and he was amazingly frank, as American officials often are, it has to be said, in saying that America really does fear this could break out into a war across the Middle East.
We're deeply concerned about that, and one of the reasons why the President has added additional force posture in the region, to include 2 carrier strike groups, is to try to prevent that from happening. And to send a strong signal to any actor or nation state that might want to see advantage in widening and escalating this conflict that they shouldn't.
And just a hint here from John Kirby from the White House about the reason why there's a bit of a delay in this war starting, or one of the reasons they're trying to get civilians out, and not just American civilians by the sound of it. Anthony Albanese using similar language today, that he was worried about innocent civilians in Gaza as well as those who'd been affected in Israel. Let's hear both gentlemen on that.
We have a special envoy on the ground, Ambassador Satterfield. He is working closely with Israel and Egypt to see what we can do to get safe passage out for all those civilians. In the United States, we have, we think, several hundred American citizens that are in Gaza who want to get out. Many of them are already down south near the crossing. So we're working on this real hard.
That's our priority, has been getting both people in Israel but also people in Gaza who want to leave, who are Australian citizens, out. We've also continued to emphasise the importance of humanitarian support for people in Gaza.
So the White House's head of communications for national security also revealed that one of the announcements tomorrow when Joe Biden and Anthony Albanese meet is that space rockets, US space rockets, will be taking off from Australia soon.
The two leaders will discuss and announce significant deliverables during the visit, for instance, announcing new advanced tech cooperation, particularly, as I said, on artificial intelligence, and highlighting a new space agreement that will allow U.S. companies to launch to space from Australia.
And as the state dinner looms, more information emerging as to who the attendees will be, those invited to attend the lavish state dinner at the White House. And one of them is one of Australia's top sporting executives.
Peter V'landys is pushing for rugby league into the US. We know he's starting the season in Las Vegas. We'll play an interview with him later in the program, but I spoke to him exclusively this morning about the invite. Have a listen to this.
It's a great honour to be here, and so I don't really know the details as to what happens during the night. I think they're a well-kept secret, but I'm really looking forward to it and hopefully be able to sell Australian sport.
So I've just been to a reception at Anthony Albanese actually opening the new Australian embassy here, Kieran, and we got more of a hint to it who might be the state dinner from that. I've already foreshadowed Taryn Brumfitt, body image movement that she's headed, that she would be attending Australian of the Year. She was at that function. So was Tom Calma. So remember the Calma Langton report from The Voice. So no doubt he's attending as an Indigenous leader, and also various business leaders like Brand Black from the Business Council of Australia, Innes Willicks from the Australian Industry Group. You'd think if they're here for the state dinner. Peter V'landys has also spoken about working with Anthony Albanese on diplomacy, as in the Pacific. Rugby league, he thinks, can be a winner when we're competing with China strategically in Pacific countries.
Look, it is also welcome, but he's also very smart. He can see using soft diplomacy in the Pacific. That's a great initiative, and I take my hat off to him. So I think it's more than he's a rugby league fan. I think he sees the potential to strengthen the relationship with our Pacific neighbours.
Yeah, it is. It's like a religion in some parts of the Pacific, that's for sure. State of Origin night in PNG, for example, is one of the most popular. Let's turn our attention to this other announcement today. I'm interested in what you thought about what sounded like a significant commitment in dollar terms around critical minerals, Andrew.
Yeah, it's loans and guarantees, I guess, is the catch there, but it's trying to take advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act. They're providing loans and guarantees for the purchase of critical minerals. They make all sorts of things, including mobile phones. We know that. But it was interesting. So Anthony Albanese announced that, bringing the investment up from $2 billion to $4 billion. The US Commerce Secretary appeared with the Resources Minister of Australia, Madeleine King Raimondo, and she spoke about the issue of China being able to cut off the supply of critical minerals and how that was a concern, and there needed to be competition. So let's hear all of that.
Lithium, vanadium, cobalt, copper, nickel are all products in which Australia has an advantage, rare earths and critical minerals. But what we are doing here is providing what is needed, but we're continuing to engage.
China has a head start. And that means we have to work a little harder and a little faster. They have the technology and sustained investment over a long period of time. And we all know if China were to point that in a direction unfavorable to us, it can cause a great deal of pain very quickly. It's on us to work more closely as allies and as between government and private sector in the extraction, refining, processing, in the whole chain.
So I've seen more of Kevin Rudd the past couple of days than I thought I'd ever see, Kieran, to be honest, after he left the Prime Ministership 10 years ago. But there he was, opening the new embassy with Anthony Albanese, and Anthony Albanese had some kind words for Kevin Rudd. Have a listen to all this.
When Americans have found themselves in the front line over much of the last 100 years, the probability is the bloke in the foxhole next to you is probably most likely to have been an Australian.
I don't know if any Australian singer returned the favour as this new embassy was being brought into being. I hope it wasn't Kevin, because I have heard him sing. And our American friends will be pleased I won't be trying to match President Yoon's effort during my visit to the White House.
Yeah, that new embassy, it was commissioned under the coalition government. Really very important location in Washington, so close to the White House, to Congress and so on. Andrew, just before you go, as we wrap up, give our viewers a sense of the next 24 hours.
Oh gosh, well, it's going to be busy for us, Kieran. I can tell you, an early start, get to the White House Oval Office meeting, press conference with the Prime Minister and the President. 2 questions from Australian journalists. We've had a draw from the hat on that. I missed out, I'm sad to say. And then the state dinner. So it's going to be bigger than Ben-Hur tomorrow. Better get a good night's rest.
We'll let you go and do that. Andrew, thanks. Talk to you soon.